and you just felt like that you'll be judged with that, and you just felt a bit scared of it, that how people will react to it and how exactly it might affect someone, or you had this very good idea during the meeting, but you just held yourself back for the reason that how exactly it will be received. And you might have also come across a situation where everybody's trying to judge everybody. Yeah, this is what human beings are. We are employees later, but first we are human beings, and that's how we operate. So this is what the whole topic, this new podcast that we are bringing to you, is all about. We call it psychological safety, and how exactly psychological safety can help us out to coexist better and actually nurture each other in a way that we could have best of the ideas from everyone without being scared of it, without being fearful of being judged or being reacted towards, or something can bounce off the team as well. So cultivating psychological safety in the workplace, creating a safe space where everyone, every team member, every element of the team, and the whole office, in fact, which definitely results in a very conducive environment later, enhancing the creativity and innovation. Because there's a lot of talk about creativity and innovations, and ideas can pop up in any mind. Ideas and creativity, this doesn't, it is not actually limited to designations and structures and the cultures. It could be with anyone, and anyone, if they feel safe enough that they'll be well received, they'll be well motivated and encouraged by the structure, by the people specifically. That's how the creativity and innovation actually is cultivated. So that's our topic. So let's welcome our guest again. Thank you very much for sparing some time for this very important element. Our creative head, Ms. Vada Yusuf, would be our guest for the day. So let's begin with this. So with this psychological safety, just before we go into any slides and anything, a few words, a bit of an introduction, a bit of a background for the viewers.
Ji, thank you so much, Anand, for always having me over. And I think
Oh,
the
it's a pleasure,
product
man.
or the service that we're trying to do here is for the larger good. We don't want to restrict knowledge to ourselves. We want it to be spread around, and the least we could do is by raising awareness about a certain number of issues that actually arise in communities, and people don't really realize what's going on wrong. So
Right.
I think we all have been there. The situations that you've discussed, I think we've always been on that side of the table where we're not heard and we feel a little underconfident, inconfident. I think the right word is unconfident, where we don't really feel comfortable in sharing our views. I mean,
Right.
and there have been issues in areas where we have not just faced a consequence because of some outburst or some reaction or some contribution. We've also been in situations where people make it difficult for us to come out of our zone and actually contribute.
Yeah.
So how to cater to that is this session all about? What makes an environment cordial enough and congenial enough for everybody to come in for the larger good, that is the
Perfect.
objectives of the company.
That's right. Thank you very much for the background, ma'am. So I think we should go with the stuff as well, with the slides as well that we have to carry forward, because very carefully we have crafted it for our viewers. Within this limited time of 30, 40 minutes, that we could just come up with everything that we can, and just to give a thought process. This is, what, when we come up with these sort of podcasts, it's just to start a thought process with our viewers, to think about it, to look at the those minute of the elements that usually are in the corner of our eyes, that don't just surface that much regularly because we don't have enough time to look at them. But this is where the trainers, where the consultants, the social opinion makers, and the business analysts, they come into play. Business psychologists, they come into play. That they bring it about, they make them, they magnify them in a sense, that how these minor issues are affecting for a greater source, for a greater, what I would say, impact on the team, either it is negative or positive. If it is a good practice, definitely. So let's proceed further. And if you could just walk us through a bit about this definition by Emmy Edmondson, who actually coined the term psychological safety, who is a Harvard from Harvard Business School, ma'am.
Thank you for this slides, Nan. So
Yeah.
we really follow Harvard Business School as a thought process school for ourselves as well, because the more multitudinal opportunities you get, the more horizon you give to the right schools and the right research cadres, the better things you can discuss together because they come from a very solid background. So they have defined psychological safety as a shared belief that is held by members of a team that the team is safe for interpersonal risk taking. I always go on to taking on to the keywords of anything that we discuss always. That's something that should be clear. So there are
Yeah.
always intrapersonal, let's just say skills or traits, and then there are interpersonal traits and skills. जहाँ हम बात करते हैं intrapersonal, that has to do with your own self, right?
Yeah.
Interpersonal has to do with you interacting with other people. And
Right.
now, in this particular definition, you can see that this is we're talking about a shared belief by a number of team members, all of them as parts of a complete system to make it all synergize together. Team feels safe for interpersonal risk taking. Now, what is that risk? जो लेने के लिए आप तैयार हो जाते हैं and you feel safe to do that is what the entire psychological safety revolves around. So, your 2 cents on this, Sarana.
Thank you very much for this very elaborative interpretation. I would just start with the shared belief. What exactly shared belief is. And when we are talking about shared belief, I'll just put ahead a very simple notion that is called common interest. You see, a common interest and a common code of ethics that has been agreed about by all the team members, maybe. That everybody knows that, okay, this is our common practice that we allow everyone to open up and we welcome everyone. We rather motivate everyone else, all the other team members, everybody's just trying to motivate everyone else, that okay, whatever you have in your mind, you can just very conveniently, fearlessly put it forth, and nobody's going to judge you for that. This is one of the biggest issues, that people, they have this biggest fear that they'll be judged for it, and they'll be judged for coming months, maybe years. Okay, this was the person who talked about this, and he just came up with this idea, how insane it is. You know what, just belittling the others. So maybe when it comes to the shared values, like you said, I'll be building on that. And this is how interpersonal risk taking is about. So
Right.
interpersonal risk taking, in my view, is that I have this idea given a situation, and I'm not scared of being judged. And I can very openly come up with my feedbacks. I can very openly point, very politely. Of course, that's very important in personal skill, interpersonal realm, that you got to be very polite with even the hardest of things. That even if you have to tell somebody that they are wrong, there is a polite way of doing that.
True.
Disagreeing, and disagreement is good, but if somebody's scared of it, that how they'll be the disagreement will come at it, and this will be a direct attack on somebody as a person, or their ideas or their values, and it's being belittled. Because I personally believe that we should never leave an ego bruised, never at all. Takes the confidence away, and the moment the confidence is taken away by one individual in a team, the whole team suffers because they are playing a role. These are my 2 cents about it, Mama. But I would request you to just expand a bit more on interpersonal risk taking, if you please.
So, what is interpersonal risk taking really? देखिए साइकोलॉजिकल सेफ्टी से मुराद होता है टू बी एबल टू गिव एंड रिसीव फीडबैक. There's you can raise issues and concerns. You feel safe to do that. You feel safe to disagree, let's say with your subordinates or with your boss
Yeah.
or line managers. You feel safe to ask for clarification. You ask difficult questions. There's nothing wrong with that. You ask for help. You offer solutions. You admit your errors. You're open to accepting your own mistakes. So यही तो risk है ना जो हम लेते हैं sometimes.
Yeah.
Otherwise we will dissolve in the situation and we just might कहते हैं ना situation might just bite you back. That's the risk we're talking about. Being able
Yeah.
to be able to do all that list that I gave you is the risk that you're taking with the team that you are coming along with. So yes,
Right.
I believe that's what interpersonal risk taking talks about. Like I said, it has to do with you people in a group, with people in a group, आपस में.
Perfect. Perfect. It's absolutely fine, Mama. Very, very, what I would say, conducive interpretation and understanding, because this is a very sensitive topic, and this is about something that we all probably, encounter all the times.
Gigi, it's a very
Even an
real
idea.
issue actually. I've seen
Yeah.
talented people
Yeah.
fall back on their backs just because of the same reason. They're not heard, and why they're
They're
not
scared.
heard is a
Yeah.
completely, ingrained issue, which is what we are trying to address today.
Perfectly
Absolutely.
right, Ma. So, just proceeding a little ahead, would like you to expand on the understanding of the psychological safety in three different contexts, of course, that how exactly it is defined. Because if I cannot define anything, if I don't have the right mix of the words, probably I won't be able to tell it to myself as well, that okay, this is what you might be going through, and this is how you're going to talk about it, how it impacts the teams, and how exactly, evidently, as per the person who coined the term, that we just talked about, we just shared her quote, how exactly the evidence favors the whole scenario.
Absolutely. So, looking at the definitions right from here, I think they're pretty self-explanatory themselves. So, psychological safety ka matlab hai, we're referring to a climate where individuals feel safe and supported to be their authentic selves and express concerns. That same thing that I just discussed in the list as well, right? उससे impact क्या होता है? उसका impact ये है कि employees will always feel safe to express themselves, their ideas, their emotions, maybe some reservations, their grievances, and that way they're able to take more risks, feel engaged, grow professionally, talk to you about your growth as well, at the same time be open about their ideas. So आप देखिए ना ऐसे solution भी काफी निकल आते हैं. If they are hesitant,
Right.
they won't share what is going on in their minds. Evidence क्या है? The concept of psychological safety is backed by extensive research, including studies by Google and Harvard Business School. Like in the beginning, we talked about how we would like to always back our notion and our narrative with a proper research. So there's a lot of evidence behind how psychological safety affects the temperature, affects the climate, and the entire environment at a workplace. So, with the brevity of time, of course, I'd like to move on with this understanding now that we know that there is evidence to this. Yes, psychological safety is a concept, it has a huge impact. And unfortunately, in our orthodox and conventional companies and organizations, we often forget that part that emotions play a very important and solid role. If your employees
True.
are a little upset today, they might not just be emotionally in the zone. So, you need to,
Right.
look into these factors as well. Ji.
Absolutely right, ma'am. A very comprehensive narration, but I would just add one more thing to it, if I may. That as an example for our viewers, yeah, that maybe one of the biggest challenges for anyone is to admit their mistakes openly. And
True.
you know what? When we are talking about psychological safety, is that okay? This is specifically for the managers. One of your team member has committed a mistake on a minor level, but they're so scared of the whole scenario that they don't want to bring it to your notice seriously, because they are a bit scared that okay, how I would be received, my whole skill set will be challenged, and it will be a big deal and all that. But if they don't report it to you at that level because they are not feeling safe, that the situation will deteriorate, and the moment you get to notice it, if it was at 5 out of 100 on a scale of 100, it was just like 5 out of 100, it definitely would be 80 out of 100, and you have a big chunk, big problem to resolve. You see, so this is one of the examples that I thought before we move to the next slide, that how exactly psychological safety works around and how it is actually somehow, impacting us. There's something that could have been handled very conveniently, maybe within like 5-10 minutes, will now take days or maybe even weeks to settle things down. So,
Agree.
proceeding further, ma'am, building on your narrative, this contrast, that psychological danger and psychological safety, this is the reason why actually I came up with the example that when we go into this contrast, this could actually develop the whole mindset for the viewers. So
Ji.
how these both things, the danger and the safety, contrast.
I was just going to build upon this only कि जी आपने example बड़ी apt दी. देखिए we are as humans we have this innate ability to actually sense fear और हम last time भी discuss कर रहे थे fight है flight है या freezing है. In situations में there's a lot of fear involved. So your reaction will determine what to do. But people will hold on to something constructive that they could have come up with because they're uncomfortable with situations. So
Right.
psychological danger क्या है? हम यूजुअली ऑपरेट कैसे करते हैं एज ह्यूमन मैकेनिज्म्स और वी नॉट रोबोट्स आई मीन वी नॉट hardwired to do something in a certain way. We have emotions and they play a very major role
Sure.
in interpreting our situations and then are responsible
Right.
for our reactions. So psychological danger से मुराद ये है कि जी आपको डर लगता है कि आप की गलती आप उसको एडमिट नहीं कर सकते, मुश्किल होगी, कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस से आपको डर लगता है. आप दूसरों को ब्लेम करेंगे बजाय से कि आप अपने फेलियर से लर्न करें एंड यू इम्प्रूव. आपको ये होगा कि जी नहीं, लेट मी नॉट शेयर माय आइडियाज विद देम बिकॉज आई माइट जस्ट बी फायर्ड बैक और समथिंग, आई माइट जस्ट गेट अ response that I'm not really looking for. So you're a little uncomfortable there also. You're not that
Right.
confident.
Right.
हाँ, आप अपनी डिसीजन मेकिंग की को भी अलाउ करते हैं ग्रुप डायनामिक्स के अंदर. डिसीजन मेकिंग को भी ना आप अलाउ जो कर रहे होते हैं वो भी अफेक्ट हो जाती है ना. नाउ यू आर
Right.
मोर कंसर्न्ड अबाउट हाउ पीपल विल थिंक और हाउ दे विल रिएक्ट, हाउ दिस कैन हैव रिpercussions instead of looking at the scenario itself. So the purpose of
Rightly said.
solving a certain issue or a certain area or certain goal attainment is defeated. जहाँ पे काम मिलकर
Yeah.
अक्लमंदी के साथ करना था, now you are scared, you are not taking decisions, you're not being innovative, you're not openly sharing your ideas. Collaboration is, the effort is defeated, the purpose of collaboration is defeated. So when
Yeah.
that atmosphere is, built, psychological safety enters, you become comfortable with everything. You become comfortable in sharing your ideas, you're open to more innovation, you are learning from your failures, you're comfortable in admitting your mistakes. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Back in the days when I was a teacher, I was a student myself. My teacher once told me that the biggest lessons you'll learn is from sports. And how is that?
Right.
When you do a foul, you own up to it. लेकिन ना इतनी इतनी तमीज सिखाई जाती है इन चीज़ों के अंदर जो हम अक्सर इग्नोर कर देते हैं, एंड दीज थिंग्स इन द कॉर्पोरेट वर्ल्ड सॉर्ट ऑफ गेट लॉस्ट in the
Yeah.
haze because these values are lost in the haze. So that's something I was going to be referring to with your example. Ji.
Perfectly right, man. Thank you very much for this contrast. And again, and you know what, like I always do before moving to the next slide, just summing it a bit, again,
Please.
just comparing it that if I have a fear of admitting mistakes and if I'm comfortable with admitting mistakes, like I've already said, that okay, probably much of the damage could be covered. It may not happen at first place. And if we are allowing, maybe moving to blaming others in psychological danger, this is what happens. You don't admit mistakes, you blame others, and then team members, they won't be confident enough to bring their ideas, and how it affects the decision making process for a manager because they are not getting the right inputs. They're not being shown the right picture. And we can see all these examples around us. Some of our colleagues talking to us about the problems, and you really know that probably they are not allowing their team members to actually express themselves. And at the end of the day, that group dynamics affect a lot. But on the other end, comfortably admitting mistakes leads to learning from failure. That's a confident thing because we talk a lot about, there are so many inspirational quotes about it, learn from failure. But okay, do we have the right environment to learn from failure? Because the first thing to learn from failure is to admit it, and openly, because it takes all the pressure off. And then everyone can openly share the ideas, and then we end up with a better innovation and everything. Thank you very much for this very insightful view, ma'am. I just summed it up a bit with this slide, but let's move to the next one, which is basically about the factors that actually affect the psychological safety, and why psychological safety is so important. All three of them: teamwork, listening, and retention. How exactly they coordinate together?
Gee, the best part about psychological safety is the benefits that you attain from them. देखिए, आप काम कर रहे होते हैं लोगों के साथ, काम खुद से नहीं होता, लोगों से करवाया जाता है, and for that you need cohesion in
Right.
your team. Teamwork
Perfect.
is important. Number two, the essence of listening is important. मैं अक्सर अपनी trainings में एक बात का concept ज़रूर देती हूँ लोगों को कि देखें, hearing और listening, they sort of are in the same spectrum of hearing, but then again, listening, active listening और hearing में भी फ़र्क है. So when you process
Yeah.
information and you are actively responding to it for responses, etc., you're ready. That's when listening comes in. It's not just hearing. सुन लिया और बस that's about it. नहीं, आप उसको process भी करते हैं, फिर आप उसके लिए रिएक्ट भी करते हैं, जवाब भी देते हैं, वट एवर योर एक्शन इज सपोज टू बी. सो इंटरेस्टिंगली पीपल फील हर्ड, they feel valued, and it leads to personal and professional growth and development because the sooner comfort comes in retention as well. How? Because people feel that this is the right place for them. It
Yeah.
believe they have job satisfaction. कहते हैं ना जी, आपके अप्रेजल्स के भी तरीके इसीलिए डाइवर्स हैं. Not every time a monetary benefit is enough. Sometimes appreciation is what
Perfect.
counts. So you
Yeah.
take it from there only. So it reduces your turnover as well, and of course your training cost is reduced because people are already with you on the same page. Ji Sehna, would you like to add something?
Now, if I may, definitely, I would just carry forward what you just said, just to sum it up. Because when it comes to listening, I would just add one thing: that if there are 100 words spoken, 90 of them usually, somebody who just talks about it, usually what people do is that when the person has shared hardly seventh word, something in our mind switches on. Yes, I got the idea. I understand you. I know what you're talking about. That's all right. But look, you're missing on more than 90% of the information.
That's true.
90% of the vital information is gone in gray. It's a dark matter now, in cosmic terms, by the way. So, how the decision that we are about to take, hardly on the basis of 10% of the information that is available out there, could be a success? Never at
True.
all. So, we are bound for a disaster already. And if you just could listen actively, like you said, that hearing and active listening are not the same, you know. So if we are listening to them actively with full concentration, this gives them an idea. They feel safe that okay, we are being heard. Being heard is one of the indicators of psychological safety around that team, around that environment. So just to add to it, that managers, they need to be very cautious of the fact that you got to listen to your people. You got to make them, give
Absolutely.
them an impression. And on the other end, technical side is this, that you are probably missing out on 90% of the information. Like I've already said that okay, either you can just handle it when it could be handled within 5 minutes, and then you may have to handle it, it may take up to 5 months. See, so just a bit ahead of it, ma'am, I would invite your views on this, the effects of the psychological safety in the context of leadership, autonomy, and communication. Autonomy in specific, because we've been talking a lot about leadership, that everybody has to be a good leader. I will take this opportunity to tell that a leader is a human being as well. We have a lot of expectations from the leader, but we forget that they are human beings as well. You see,
True.
they could not be in the right psychological state, and who's going to come and nurture them and ask them that okay, is everything all right? And it's very rare that team members would go to their leader and actually ask them or understand, being emotionally intelligent. So I just thought that I should take this opportunity, that if our viewers and everybody's watching and anybody who's watching it later, we got to think over it, that a leader is a human being, and there are a lot of expectations, but leader has a lot of expectations as a human being as well. So specifically autonomy, ma'am, but over to you, starting with the leadership.
Gee, so very well said. Actually, that's a very good thought-provoking point. And I think a point to ponder, and people can take it as a homework as well to actually wonder how this does it happen to the leader. However, we're all leaders in our positions, and I feel that any person in their own position have the right power to influence the work environment, psychological safety, and that is, of course, when you build trust, you build communication. It's all sound enough that people they find you approachable, and then you are able to communicate better. Speaking of communication, very rightly said, formal ho ya informal ho, it should be open but respectful. It should have the right policies that encourage transparency and honesty. I think the right culture is built around the right value system that
Yeah.
sort of trickles down from the leadership only. So जब आप वो एक environment create करने के लिए effort करते हैं and psychological safety को value करते हैं, you'll find people are more attached towards you. Then they're more inclined towards listening to you. There could be areas
Right.
which might not fall in their JD, but they'll do it just for the sake of the fact that you are so understanding of their viewpoint. Simple as that. And in return, they respect you that way. Yes, very rightly said. Autonomy is one of the foremost points that we should be talking about. People should feel that they have control over their work, they are supported in their decision, they should feel that they are the owners, and the ownership is felt and sort of trickled down, like I said, through the leadership only, जहाँ पे हर एम्प्लॉय अपनी वैल्यू एडिशन को ओन भी करता हो. सो उतनी कहते हैं ना आपके पास ऑटोनॉमी देनी चाहिए फ्रॉम द सिस्टम एज वेल, और जहाँ वो मिल जाती है, यू people start thinking, or individuals start understanding that this is my zone and my area, and I have been entrusted with it. So that confidence that you build with your team, the trust factor that you build, sort of is reflected when you give them the autonomy. You tell them
Yeah.
that we trust you with what you want to do. So Anand, your 2 cents please, if you would like to.
Thank you very much, ma'am. But I just picked this up. You just said something seriously very, very insightful, and I'll just build on that. Owning, getting the ownership, number one, and realizing that you own it. This realization, that's a very critical point. And thank you very much for raising it, ma'am. That it's not just that I, as a team member, realize that okay, I have this control and ownership, but I know about it as well. It's not just that my manager knows about it, or being a manager, that I should be very careful about the fact that if I've given some autonomy, it's not just in my mind.
True.
Then later we just come up with all this, that you could do it, you didn't need to ask me. No, I didn't tell the person categorically, in these situations you don't need to come back to me. You see all that micromanagement thing. So we've got to be very categorical with it, with the people, to let them know, actually let them know and talk about it, that you can. And if you can, and if I'm telling you that you can, then I'm taking the ownership for your activities. So in short, everything good you do is yours, everything that goes wrong is mine. So this is the kind of an attitude this that actually cultivates the fearlessness and all that. So thank you very much for this, Ma. But let's just have a look at. We'll invite your views on the difference between trust and psychological safety, because they definitely would have this idea that, okay, are we just talking about having building the trust among the team members, and how it is a bit different. The psychological safety is a bit different from the trust, ma'am.
Okay, so a very interesting point raised. As much as they're very, very similar and there's hardly any difference, I'd like you to sort of concentrate on two aspects. So, a conversation or communication or work happens two ways, right? You are involved and others are involved. Trust is when you give the benefit of doubt, when you take the risk, right? When you give others the benefit of doubt, when you're taking the risk. For example, Bob is probably going to freak out if I disagree with him. Your trust is when you know, no, he's going to be fine because I'm saying so. I'm taking the risk and I am giving that person a benefit of doubt. However, psychological safety works the other way around. You're talking about now considering not yourself but the others. Will the others give you the benefit of doubt when you take a risk? Now, that's a reality that is in place, which is
Yeah,
why
that's very
psychological
correct.
safety is insisted upon. So it's like the example very rightly stated. My team expects me to speak up. It's how we do things, this is my team, this is going to be supportive. So there are many scenarios in the workplace that come across, and you expect your team to actually listen to you and actually have that confidence in you. And that's when the psychological safety aspect comes in. So if that's clear, Sarnan, would you like to maybe, I don't know, put in your 2 cents as well?
Ma'am, I would just again build on something that you said. Seriously, it's very
Absolutely. No,
insightful.
I
But
appreciate this
will the
conversation.
others,
I
yeah,
mean, let's
perfect. Will
have
the
it.
others give you the benefit of doubt? Yeah, of course. I
True.
think this answers many other questions. That will the other people own? Will they give me the benefit of doubt? No problem at all. You're a human being. You can come up with something insane. You can come up. You might not be feeling well. All right, and you're welcome to outpour yourself, your mind, your ideas, whatever you can, and put them on the
Mhm.
table, and everybody will have a look at it. Yes, they can disagree with it, and you got to be very patient with the fact that, okay, if something that you posted, when you put it forth to the other team members, they can disagree. We may end up with my idea not being selected. That's all right, but the selection is very logical. It's
Hmm.
at least they admitted to what I said. They deliberated on it logically, very seriously, and I felt empowered that, okay, at least I was taken seriously. See, and
True.
next time I have to come up with a better idea. So that kind of a thing that really, I reckon that the employees, they do appreciate as well. So how exactly can we create a culture of psychological safety? How
So,
exactly can you
I
work
think
on it?
one of them is initiation that we have done. You start telling people about it, you raise awareness, and the second step to that is your training. You train
Yeah,
people. देखिए छोटी सी बात नहीं है. You have to acclimatize people to come onto that platform where they feel safe enough to actually
yeah,
acknowledge, हाँ जी, psychological safety exists, and we are given that confidence.
yeah.
Eventually, it's about providing employees with the training in communication, emotional intelligence, something that we are going to do just tomorrow,
Right.
and conflict resolution, skills to encourage team building. देखिए when we are always, मैंने एक बात ज़रूर नोट की है कि आपके इदारे जब आपको पढ़ाई करके बच्चों को निकाल रहे होते हैं ना, the reason for their projects, their collaborative projects coming
Yeah,
together, group work, कोर्स वर्क, ये क्यों इनकरेज किया जाता है कि बच्चे आपस में जेलन करना सीखे, वरना तो यू कांट सर्वाइव इन अ कम्युनिटी, सिंपल इज दैट.
right.
Which is why
That's it.
students with straight A's might just be just employed by the people with average grades. Why? Because उनके अंदर वो social skills आ जाते हैं. So how do you ingrain that part in people that you will be heard, your opinion matters, you should have that confidence, you have our trust, etc. etc. Conflict resolution के लिए so many things जिसके ऊपर आप लोगों को train कर सकते हैं. देखिए स्किल इज समथिंग दैट इज नॉट कि आप you're just going to be born with it. It has to be trained about, it has to be worked upon. You can always upskill yourself. We are still doing it, and undergrad जिसमें भी किया हो, masters जिसमें भी किया हो, post grad जिसमें भी किया हो, we're still upgrading ourselves each day. That's how everything works around. And उसके लिए it's important to let your training be in place. T&Ds ज़रूर करवानी चाहिए even organizations को. We encourage that. Why? Because you need them to stay abreast with the entire world. And for that, of course, training is an element that adds value. People understand, ठीक है, we'll feel safe we'll feel safe, we'll be understood, etc etc. So वो सबको एक
Yeah.
पेज पे लाने के लिए you need to do this. जिस तरह HR अपने rules and regulations बताता है, psychological safety is another aspect that helps in getting work done through people as well, because they feel safe enough to share their ideas. So काम जो आपका let's say 10 days ले रहा था, अब वो शायद 7 days ले ले, because people are more efficient in
Perfect.
coming across with their ideas and resolution is done quicker. So that has to be trained. That's a pattern you set. उसके अलावा we talk about encouragement. Yes, to recognize and reward employees for positive communication and being proactive in creating a safe and healthy work environment is a very very positive part of creating a culture. If I start discouraging my people, again they will fall into the trap of psychological safety hazard. They'll feel they're not being heard, and next time they will not come. Even leaders need to be trained to tell how to actually appreciate people and encourage them to come forward. So, like I
Yeah.
always say to my people, no answer is bad, no answer is wrong. It's always contribution. So, let's do this together and build the right format. And of course, we try to do it by leading by example, by actually practicing a model behavior that actually lets people know that we are open to feedback, and we regularly also want to communicate well and actually give back to them as well. Yes.
Perfectly right, ma'am. And I think it resonates well with this quote that you've just published. See, psychological safety means that you won't be punished for speaking
True.
up. That's the
That is
bottom
so
line.
true.
That's the
Absolutely,
bottom line. I
absolutely.
think we have been building on it for the past 30, 31 minutes, and this is basically the whole crux of the discussion, that you will not be punished for speaking up in a very, what I would say, convenient terms, that everybody would understand. Anybody who's a manager, anybody who's a part of a team, they can actually now understand that what they need, what we all need to do is that nobody has this fear of getting punished in any way. That could be a simple stare as well, or a laugh. I would just call it that if somebody laughed about somebody's idea, that is equally a punishment. That's a psychological punishment. That's an emotional punishment. It's not just
True.
about, what those hardcore punishments that, okay, fine, you just keep on doing this, don't come to my office and all that. But it's just a stare, a raise of an eyebrow could actually be a punishment for somebody who's coming up with the idea. Okay, ma'am, we're just moving to the last slide quickly to sum it up, that in
Ji.
different scenarios and situations, like there are three scenarios, that how when we are having physical group discussions, and how when we are working with the remote teams, and how the feedback is so important, how feedback actually is the maker and the breaker, how we receive the feedback, by the way, or give the feedback, how it is maker or a breaker of this psychological safety content in the environment. Your final words, ma'am.
Gee, sure. So, very rightly put. It's either the maker or the breaker. Why? Because your feedback and the way it is also communicated plays a very important role. You could just give a very positive feedback in a very wrong way, or you could just give a very, very demeaning feedback in a constructive way. They're both very different. And that's what makes the difference in actually honing a culture where people feel safe enough to be even heard. And then again, being given their feedback as well for improvement. जहाँ आप उनको डिस्करेज कर देंगे तो nobody would want to even stay around. That's the idea, right? So ऐसा है कि
Perfect.
group discussions sort of make it culture very inclusive. It encourages people to come forward with their discussions. People are heard. People learn a culture of respecting each other. That's the
Yep.
basic of everything. बाकी रूल्स रेगुलेशंस तो बाद में आते हैं. You respect space, you respect time, you respect each other's value viewpoint, and that's how you proceed with group discussions. So that sort of builds complete environment and a culture of respecting each other, and then encouraging active participation and idea sharing from people. And that's how people contribute and you build things. Again, remote teams are people who are usually away, and they sort of feel that they're unheard or somewhere, something like that. But the sooner you sort of bring them on board, giving them equal opportunity like the ones who are physically present with you, you sort of build a culture where again there's engagement amongst employees, and they don't feel that they have sort of fallen back in the ladder of psychological safety. Moving on, again, like we were talking about, the feedback plays an important role, and I think there is a specific training required even for people to understand how to give feedback. Leaders lack there badly. I'm sorry to say, it could just include me as well, and trust me, there are prompts I go and I learn and I research, and then that's how we present it to the leaders in our training and workshops, where they practice that एक बात जो ऐसे कही गई है वो ऐसे भी कही जा सकती थी.
Yeah.
उसका impact जो है, that is poles apart. So how do you entertain that phase? By giving the right type of feedback, and I think that's something that really adds a lot of value.
Perfect, ma'am. Thank you very much for Very insightful session as usual, and I'm pretty sure that our viewers got a lot of ideas to think over. Because, like again, I would say that these podcasts, these sessions, are just to start thinking in a particular direction, something that we couldn't have much time to, or some things that we felt like that okay, probably this is not that important, because anything that is least important turns out to be the most important element. So as you must have already seen that the QR code for the inquiry, if you so wish for us to conduct a training session, a virtual session for you, that is over there. But there is an announcement as well. We are very soon about to launch an online training session that will be called Supercharge Your Professional Success, Unleash the Power of AI Conversations with ChatGPT for Work, because this is now a reality and everybody needs to understand and know how they can save a lot of time for the bigger thoughts, for the contemplation, for the innovation and all that. So if something can be done within 2 minutes now, even if it is responding to an email, or it is just about working on a presentation and developing a presentation that may take you hardly 5 minutes, that usually used to take you like 2 hours, or 5 to 10 minutes, you get it done. So that's why we are planning on this. And if you're watching it live and if you're watching later, just keep a track of it. We'll be publishing it on our page, but we have a request as well. Please like our page as well for all the updates and everything coming regularly. Ma'am, thank you very much once again for your time, for all this insight, for all these opinions that definitely will make people like me to think twice again what we are doing and how we can do things better. And thank you very much to viewers for your patience and everything. We'll keep on coming up with these sort of ideas, with these sort of topics very usually, but we'll welcome you to come and just direct us into a particular direction that what you'd like to hear us from. For now, I'll be signing off. Thank you very much. Until next time. Thanks a lot, ma'am.